Hey everyone! This episode is going to be distinctly different from all my time skip episodes up to now. The reason for this is because it's going to be entirely focused on one character, Sasuke Uchiha. Typically, I've been using the start and end of each episode to highlight other characters. But today, Sasuke will encompass all of that. I also have a different version of Sasuke today, donated by Crazy Star, so keep an eye out for that. And by the same artist, we'll have a brief look at his version of Sakura, which will be a fun look for a lot of people. You'll understand what I mean when you see her. There's a lot of building mystery surrounding Mr. Hokage Minato, and bit by bit we're going to explore this and figure out what's going on. Last time we introduced a mysterious figure that my Discord just couldn't stop talking about, and probably still are somewhere right now. One thing I don't like to trivialize as well is villains. Canon Naruto had Orochimaru as an incredibly dangerous villain that just seemed so much less in Shippuden. The way Kishimoto wrote him, he could have easily remained dangerous throughout the entire story, but chose instead to minimize the threat so that others could shine. I think it's more realistic to have multiple villainous groups, and even in some cases, for these villainous groups to not align with each other. Everyone has their own motivation, and if you put a simple contrast of black versus white, good versus evil, it doesn't really ring as realistic to me. But this episode is going to be one of my biggest. I say that now, it might not be, so I should stop my usual ranting. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already, because that really puts my face on more pages. Like the video, or dislike it, since both actually kick up activity, and again, puts my face on more pages. Hey, there's even a share button that I always forget about, if I'm being honest. Tell your friends, help me out. And of course comment, because I love the discourse of conversation. Whether I'm being compared to Daigo Knight, or that my story is hot garbage, though that hasn't happened yet thankfully, or even that you heard of me from a friend of a friend, it's all welcome. Oh, and there's always Discord, where all this awesome fan art is getting made, as well as some weird memes that even I don't understand. Seriously, they're obsessed with Dosu. Without further ado, let's get into this thing. It was remarkable to Sasuke as he dashed through the land of fire how familiar everything was to him. He spent much of his childhood inside the walls of Konoha, and even after becoming a ninja, didn't do much exploration outside the city. Nonetheless, he felt a strange level of calm descending as he came ever closer to the city limits. Despite what he had learned in his travels, he still very much looked forward to seeing the Hokage. Shivers ran down his spine, and he smiled despite himself for the reunion with someone like Minato. His time away truly fortified how much he relied on the Hokage for protection, and as a calming presence when he was stressed out by his family. Even the battling that he just had escaped from felt like an echo now that he charged toward the village. He took sparse few hours each night to rest and eat before setting out on another day-long dash across the countryside. It was summer again, and even the nights were warm. The grass and trees around him were a deep, rich green, overflowing with life, a stark contrast to the land of rock and sound that he had just come from. Eventually, finally, Sasuke reached the city and surely appeared as a blur in his speed to get inside. Sliding dozens of feet across some gravel to stop, Sasuke turns and checks that he certainly was not followed. He'd been looking over his shoulder constantly as he headed back to Konoha and really never saw anything. Whoever the mysterious protector was, they definitely succeeded in keeping the sound away from Sasuke. Izumo and Kotetsu spring to their feet upon seeing the Uchiha sigil on Sasuke's back, and Izumo, noting Sasuke's newfound height, asks, "Akane?" But Sasuke's not spent the last 2 weeks in a full-on sprint in a traveling battle with some enemy ninja just so that he could socialize with the gate guards. Ignoring the two men, Sasuke keeps his back to them and heads further into the village. Kotetsu gives chase, signaling Izumo to take a side route to cut Sasuke off. Smirking at their attempt to question him, Sasuke bites into his thumb and stamps it against a wall he ducks behind, summoning Katsuyu forth. He didn't spend very much chakra, and this Katsuyu is only about the size of a large dog, like a Saint Bernard. "Oh, Sasuke," she mutters quietly. "What do you need today?" "I got 2 ninja tailing me," Sasuke tells her. "Please stop them, but don't hurt them." Before waiting for her to respond, he takes off again, signaling to Kotetsu where he was hiding as a trap for Katsuyu to spring. As he runs past the wall, Kotetsu slips on some of her slime, and before he can climb to his feet, she crawls on top of him. She doesn't do anything. No attacks. It's just her sheer weight and amorphous shape to keep him pinned. Despite his protests, Katsuyu continually apologizes as she repeatedly prevents his escape from her clutches. Several citizens nearby stop and look at his predicament, gossiping amongst each other where such a big slug came from, instead of helping him or even calling for help. A much smaller, rabbit-sized piece of herself separates from her and slides in a quicker fashion towards the sprinting Sasuke. Dashing from an alleyway, Izumo collides with Sasuke, but his Sharingan is honed in on him, and it just takes a couple efficient jabs to his elbows, knees, ankles, any kind of joint to keep Izumo from restraining him. Sasuke had spent so much of his time away trying to hurt his enemies that he found a fascinating difficulty in not injuring this opponent. Spotting the smaller Katsuyu approaching, Sasuke took the opportunity to shove Izumo toward her, and he toppled from the imbalance Sasuke had struck in him. Leaping onto Izumo's face, Katsuyu repeatedly apologizes. "Oh dear, clumsy me," while Izumo freaks out about the slug on his face. More bystanders collected and wondered aloud why Izumo was throwing such a fit. So much for the tough ninja that was meant to be guarding their gate. Despite the lighter threat of Izumo and Kotetsu, Sasuke did wonder why there were no Anbu coming down to apprehend him despite the trouble he was making. But he didn't get far from Izumo before nearly colliding with Sakura as she exited a nearby shop. Dropping her bag of goodies, Sakura leaps into his way upon recognizing him. When he tries to twist around her, she snaps forward with a hand and grabs his wrist, asking when he got back and ignoring the rush he was clearly in. Clicking his tongue in annoyance, Sasuke resolves to pin her so he can move on quickly. But all does not go his way, as Sakura moves in a much cleaner motion than Izumo and Kotetsu, and he ends up pinned against a wall himself. Shocked that she had gained so much skill in his time away, Sasuke tells her that he needs to go right now and has no time to entertain her 20 questions. Slipping from the hold, Sasuke engages in another quick scuffle, where he turns the advantage and shoves her face first into the wall instead. Instead of hanging around to interrogate her in return, he uses this opportunity to continue his sprinting through the village. "Sasuke!" Sakura shouts after him, but she recognizes the rush he's in, and when she looks in the opposite direction, she sees Izumo still freaking out with Katsuyu and decides to help him instead. Sasuke will surface later. Maybe he just drank some bad milk. Instead of heading straight for the Hokage's office, Sasuke veers off toward the hospital. He needs to speak to Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Minato, and luckily his information for Tsunade and Jiraiya was brief. As he comes to Tsunade's office, he hears further down the hall Minato's voice, and slips inside Tsunade's office to eavesdrop. Her door was open anyway, so if he was caught, he could save face by honestly telling them he was looking for them. And this shaves time off his trip looking for Minato as well. Minato stops just outside Tsunade's office, and it's clear he's speaking to her. "Keep the journal updated," Tsunade tells Minato sternly. "We will get to the bottom of this." And in order to do that, I think you should hold on to it. Minato agrees to silence. After a couple seconds pass, Sasuke leaves the office and unveils himself. Tsunade's mouth drops open and Minato's face turns from recognition to confusion. Stymieing their attempts at shock and even welcome, Sasuke tells them both that he needs to speak with them in a private place, hopefully where the Anbu will not hear. Hands on Tsunade and Sasuke both, Minato teleports them to his office. Finding their seats, Minato tries to speak, but Sasuke stops him in his tracks, insisting that he goes first. Shaking his head, the Hokage refuses, and demands that Sasuke explain where he's been all this time. Why didn't he come back sooner? There has been troubles in Konoha involving his family, and perhaps knowing where Sasuke is will help explain where Akane is. Eyes shifting uncomfortably, Sasuke sighs and agrees to tell them what happened to him. It took weeks for Sasuke and Neji to dig a hole in their cell. This was both an effort to avoid discovery, as well as to not alert their cell neighbors. They decided that no one could be trusted with this knowledge of attempted escape, so they only worked on it when the other prisoners slept. This was masked as verbal games between one another, or talking jutsu theory. Anything to draw attention away from the digging. And luckily, while their offensive jutsu couldn't extend beyond their cell, they could use their other jutsu in any way that they pleased. Additionally, they only had to dig past the stone blocks that made up their floor. They very quickly made the discovery that past this was just compacted dirt. So they would take turns digging while the other provided what believable distractions they could. Sasuke experimented with genjutsu to see if the guard fell for it, but the guard seemed entirely indifferent either way, so it was hard to tell and difficult to trust. Neji struck against the bars in exact timing with any digging noises Sasuke made so that the guard wouldn't look up. Their resistance became such commonplace that the guards finally began to just ignore it completely. So they were able to get away with their treachery under this guise. They used various jutsu to help make the digging process faster, and one day, at long last, the brick crumbled and they reached the soft, easy-to-dig dirt. After that first foot where the brick had been, it took the same amount of time to dig the entire rest of the tunnel. While on his turn for digging, Neji reached a point where the dirt itself collapsed beneath him into a sort of crawl space. There were loose bricks down here, untouched presumably since the construction of the prison, that Neji was able to carry back up to more easily cover their hole in case a guard came for a closer look. After only slightly more investigation, he found an exit to the outside, where parts of the wall had decayed over time, and it only took slight pressure for Neji to break through. He returned to Sasuke with the good news, who had created several genjutsu clones to mask Neji's absence from the cell. Pulling the spare brick into place with a little bit of extra dirt, Neji covered the spot with one of their cots and sat over it before Sasuke dispelled the genjutsu. Using his leg to block the guard's view of his hand, Neji tapped a finger onto the floor in Morse code to communicate what he had discovered below. They had spent many weeks here without washing themselves, and like all the other prisoners, the two looked incredibly disheveled. It was a fear Sasuke had that they might become dirty and suspicious to the guards in that way, but everyone was just as filthy anyway. Sasuke tells Neji through their tapping communication to leave first. If they leave at the exact same time, the guard will undoubtedly notice immediately. But if just one leaves at a time, then they can all but guarantee at least one person escapes. In a few hours, right before the guards change hands, Sasuke will follow after, but regardless, Neji cannot wait up for him. Besides, Sasuke whispers to him, my eye might be better than yours, but your family is more important than mine. Let's face it. On one hand, Sasuke was teasing him, but on the other, there was a level of resignation in his voice for how the Uchiha clan had diminished in respect in recent years. Oh, your eye was so better than... Neji begins, but trails off, shaking his head in annoyance that after all this cooperation, Sasuke still felt the need to try and frustrate him. And so, as Neji crawls to freedom, Sasuke covers the hole with the same brick and uses stupid jutsu to mask Neji's absence. But it would only be an hour before a deafening alarm rang through the entire prison, and Sasuke assumes that Neji was caught in his attempted escape. Just minutes after the alarm starts, a large man enters the chamber with 4 guards, walks towards Sasuke's cell, and performs a jutsu that disassembles the bars, allowing the men unfettered access to the cell. Keeping to his characteristic resistance, Sasuke launches himself into them and attempts to fight them off. But they clearly have some ninja training beyond a few jutsu, despite not being dressed for the job, and quickly pin Sasuke against the barred walls that meet with one of his neighbors who are all now awake and staring at him in shock and fear. The large man looks through the cell suspiciously, kicking various points in the wall and stomping on the floor randomly. Eventually, their faux brick falls away and reveals the passage Neji had escaped through. Opaque bag tied around his head, Sasuke is shackled and carried away. Lacking the powerful sight of the Hyuga, Sasuke does not see through the bag, nor the punches thrown at him in frustration from the guards for the prison break. After beating him to a pulp, they throw him into a different cell that's deeper down, darker, and far more heavily manned. In his new cell, Sasuke just rolls over and tries to sleep away this fresh pain. They don't give him a cot here, and he realizes he must be in the higher security wing of this prison. His cell is blank, completely empty, devoid of all things. He doesn't have any of the amenities that he had before, and even the food is worse. His cell neighbors are entirely disinterested in talking as well, but there are much fewer of them down here from what he can tell. It's so much darker that in some of the cells, he can't tell if it's a dark spot on the floor or someone's body. After just a week of deliberating how he'll possibly escape from this new mess, his cell door opens and a second person is thrown inside. Just like how Sasuke had initially thrown a violent resistance when he was tossed in with Neji, this new cellmate is extremely combative with the guards. It takes 6 of them to manhandle and throw him into the cell. He growls against the restraints they put on him, and after a few minutes of pacing, he eventually throws himself against a wall and slumps to the floor. Sitting up, Sasuke squints through the darkness at his new cellmate, who's still panting heavily from the fighting he just did. Laughing, Sasuke realizes who they just paired him with. Whoever was running this prison was an idiot. Walking to the new prisoner, Sasuke crosses his legs and sits on the floor a foot away. "Hello, Naruto," he greets, smiling with excitement. "Sasuke?" Naruto asks into the darkness. His rumbling growl has vanished completely, and he's back to just sounding like himself. "How did you get in here?" he asks as he maneuvers his legs around his arms such that his shackles on his wrists are in front of him rather than behind. "I was jumped on the beach. I was with the raiding party with Kurenai-sensei. There was a rock slide," Sasuke explains quickly. "I escaped that, but then Iwa Anbu descended on me and, well, there was little else I could do." "I didn't stand a chance either," Naruto nods in agreement. "I was sent far, far away by some jutsu. Long and short of it is, by the time I got back, the war was over. I camped under the stars and woke up in a cart with a bunch of other prisoners." "The war's over?" Sasuke asks. "I mean, it was practically over when I was still involved," Naruto nods. His voice is kind of gravelly. "I was in the city with the last survivors as we tried to defend Lord Orochimaru. I think we lost." From the moment he realized that he was being carted away as a prisoner, he started fighting back. Putting it lightly, he caused a lot of damage between that little cart and this prison cell. Laughing, Sasuke approves this message. He tells Naruto that he was imprisoned with Neji, but that he helped him escape. Hopefully Neji did escape, but obviously Sasuke wasn't so lucky. If you did so much damage before, maybe you want to, damage our way out of here? Sasuke asks coyly, smirking into the darkness. Who knew the fox could have its uses? Nodding vaguely in the darkness, Naruto gives a less ecstatic agreement about the Nine Tails. It'll probably be a few days before I can rampage like that again, Naruto tells Sasuke. They screwed up my seal. It's not so easy to handle anymore. Frankly, I wish I could get rid of it without dying in the process. No one wants to be a Jinchuriki. Ino probably feels the same. Sasuke shrugs, unable to understand Naruto's predicament. No, hers is different, Naruto answers quietly. The foxes, they're all different. With nothing else to do in the days waiting for the fox to decide to help, Sasuke and Naruto have nothing better to do but talk. Sasuke talks about the now, how they should figure out where they are when they get out, and get back home as soon as possible. Naruto talks about the past, wondering how his dad decided on their teams, where Hinata and Kiba and Akane disappeared too, and the random things he got up to with Orochimaru. And then without warning, he used this jutsu to turn the prisoner into the third Hokage, Naruto exclaims, still dumbstruck by it this long after the fact. I never thought I'd meet him, but I guess I didn't really... stuck in the closet, as I was. Hold on. Sasuke stops Naruto. Lord Orochimaru resurrected the third Hokage. It wasn't for very long, but... yeah, Naruto answers. Can he resurrect anyone with that? I don't know. I never really thought about that, Naruto mumbled, realizing his error. I don't see why not. I guess if I ever learned that jutsu, though, I'd definitely bring my mom back. Naruto continues, It sucks to know that the very reason that she died is thriving inside of me, and I never got to apologize to her or anything. While Naruto ruminates about his unavoidable regrets, Sasuke ponders the implications of this impure resurrection jutsu. You know, I was so young when my family was killed that I never really got to know the more intricate dealings of my family. Sasuke laments the missing knowledge he likely will never have. Between my brother and father, they knew everything about the inner workings of my clan. After Shisui made a sudden reappearance during the Chunin exams, it made me wonder how he survived, where my brother did not. I was always told the two were equal in talent. Did Orochimaru survive the encounter at Iwa? Sasuke asks, but Naruto has no further information. He was sent away before the fight concluded. Sometime after they wake, since they have no idea if it's day or night this deep down, Naruto suddenly jolts to his feet. Telling Sasuke it's time, Naruto distances himself to the other side of the cell. Stay away. I can't promise your safety once the fox takes control. Inching to the complete opposite side, Sasuke nods at Naruto. I don't entirely lose my mind, but I do lose control. So do not try to intervene, or you will get hurt. I never thought you'd embrace the transformation like this. Your little freakout in the Chunin exams made you so upset with yourself, Sasuke observes. By whatever means necessary. Naruto growls in a deep, furious voice that feels like it reverberates off the walls. Sasuke feels chills as he watches Naruto begin to glow with visible chakra and smiles against this newfound fear of his childhood friend, or at least the monster within. Unlike the first time that he lost it, he is giving even more of himself to the fox now. He tells Sasuke that before, he had 2 chakra tails, so once he transforms this time, if Sasuke can observe the number, that would be great for figuring out just how much he can give to the fox without it getting too crazy. Suddenly screaming in agony, Naruto's skin begins to peel away, revealing pure but refined chakra beneath, as the red of the fox is exposed. Clawing at his head and hair, Naruto crumples to his knees, and his screams turn to roars. Just as he had said, two tails of nearly transparent chakra sprout from Naruto's backside, as even his clothes disappear behind this veil of the fox. Naruto was no longer in a form that Sasuke recognized, as veins of chakra pulsed in an amalgam that was the fox personified. And the transformation took seconds. The guards outside their cell barely noticed it before the transformation had fully completed. By then, Fox Naruto was already shattering through the bars that once held him. As extra limbs protruded from the chakra body, they spun around the room and threw the guards hard against the walls. Without a look backward, Fox Naruto leapt to the level above, straight through the ceiling, causing their current floor to begin caving in. Acting fast, Sasuke had to maintain a safe distance behind Fox Naruto while also dodging the mayhem he caused. Dozens of guards poured onto the floor Fox Naruto was on, but seemed flummoxed as to how they were going to deal with him. Fox Naruto, on the other hand, had no questions about how to deal with the guards, as it opened its mouth and roared with such force that the guards' armor shattered from their bodies. Most of the men fell in a heap with blood coming out of their ears from the blast. Fox Naruto also didn't care to save anyone, as it dove through the jail and seemed to seek out any guards or staff. Or frankly, any who cared to react to him. His chakra tails are now part of the strange body, and seem to be somehow more than just visible chakra. Each time the tails whipped about and smacked into a wall or the floor, they simply cut straight through like a hot knife through butter. It was putting it lightly to say that the guards didn't care a whit about escaping prisoners at this point. Everyone was as one in their attempt to scramble away from Fox Naruto, and nothing they did to him seemed to have any effect other than making him more angry. Finding a shattered passage that led to a sunlit exit, Sasuke paused before leaving and shouted at Fox Naruto, "5 tails!" before turning and fleeing out the doors. He was certainly still in the land of rock. The landscape was the same dry, boring, pallid desert that they had been traveling through before. Except Sasuke had just spent nearly 2 months in a jail, and his eye was not adjusting well to the natural light. While Sasuke recoiled at the light, further explosions echoed from the crumbling prison behind him, and he realized he needed to make a distance before stopping to ponder. He wondered if he should wait for Naruto to revert back to himself and go retrieve him before remembering that Naruto encouraged him to move on alone. Maybe that meant that Naruto would be transformed for a while. Why else would he be encouraged to move on? Nevertheless, Sasuke searched the area first for a village or a road sign, so he could imprint this place into his memory. One day soon, he promised himself, he would return and learn why they took his eye, and if they gave it to someone else, find out who that was. After this, Sasuke decides to go to Iwa to find out what happened. Judging by Naruto's story, Orochimaru either won, and now Iwa is occupied by the Leaf, or he lost, and that's the last place anyone saw him alive. He could have hightailed it out of there as well, but Sasuke needed to check regardless. As he ran, he noticed large impromptu camps built along the countryside and wondered who these people were. But he kept his distance regardless and assumed it was displaced citizens from the war. Regardless of who won or lost, the amount of villages that were razed completely by the Leaf invasion must have displaced thousands of people. Not to mention any amount of damage that may have been dealt to their capital. First things first, Sasuke had to figure out exactly where he was in the country. He assumed he was to the north, considering how ravaged the south had become. Ultimately, though, he didn't have a very good idea. It didn't take long before he found trails of black smoke in the distance and figured he was getting closer to relative safety. Thinking back on the jail, Sasuke feels a jolt of guilt yet again for leaving Naruto in the lurch. Shaking his head, he tells himself that Naruto's a Jinchuriki. He can handle himself, even if he doesn't seem like it. As he learned new information from his surroundings, Sasuke was able to make educated guesses to veer in the general direction of Iwa. And the closer he got, the more he thought about that impure resurrection. If he could use it to bring back his dad, and ask questions about why the clan was so intent on destroying itself, maybe he could get insight in how to fix it. Even though he had just thought of it, Sasuke quickly adopted it as his sole mission. Find Orochimaru and get him to resurrect Fugaku Uchiha. Grinning, Sasuke can't stop himself from feeling giddy at the idea of seeing his dad again. Having done a remarkable job in tracing his way to the fallen city, it only took Sasuke a week to get out of the northern part of the country and into more familiar territory. It took him a few days to zero in on the city, but in doing so, he at least scouted inadvertently as well. There seemed to be a small regiment of ninja that holed up in the ruined city. Despite the broken walls and the collapsed city within, they had made the holes in the walls into gates to enter the city. There were also several patrols at night, both on the walls and on the ground outside. He wondered why they were acting so defensive, because they definitely were not Leaf Ninja. After the war, if the Leaf retreated, would the Rock still be on such high alert? Unless there was something else afoot. At the end of the day, Sasuke decided that he needed to go in for a closer look. He felt that it would actually be pretty easy to get around the ninja at night. The whole area was scarred by these odd holes in the ground. Sasuke could probably use those to hide in as he got closer to the village proper. Just as he emerged in the night to infiltrate, he bumped into a man with white hair, who seemed to have been standing there the whole time, but Sasuke didn't see him. Black hair, shouting gun eye. The man muttered, closing his eyes. Yes, about your age. Lord Orochimaru has described you to me. Who are you? Sasuke asked, distancing himself a little. And where is Lord Orochimaru? Kimimaro. Dead. The man answers concisely, continuing. And the late master imparted all of his knowledge to me, including the people to look out for from Konoha. You were on that list. If he's dead, what happened to the forbidden jutsu that he could do? Sasuke asks, angry that, in fact, the worst-case scenario had occurred. He gave me everything. I am his successor. Kimimaro plainly answers. Who are you? Sasuke repeats, as if he'd come across a crazy man that had just wandered out of one of the holes in the ground. Kimimaro. I started the Sound Village while the master worked with the Leaf. Sasuke wonders why Kimimaro is so willing to share all this information. If what he said was true, then it's this Sound Village that Sasuke needed to find. You're not leaving our village alive now. You can assimilate, or you can be in prison. Kimimaro tells him flatly, you were one of the potential candidates that the late master considered as a successor. He simply never got around to you. I can still use you, though. If you're good enough for the master, then you're sure to be a strong ally. Sasuke scrunches his face in confusion, telling Kimimaro that he never so much as looked in my direction. How could I possibly have been on this list of potential successors? Lord Orochimaru had many on his list, including Neji Hyuga, Minato Namikaze, Naruto Uzumaki, Asuma Sarutobi, Anko Mitarashi, and Ino Yamanaka, to name a few. He deemed either your bodies or your abilities to be full of potential, even if he never gave you the time of day. Suffering from this sudden information overload, Sasuke puts his hands up to pause Kimimaro. What do you even mean by successor? Kimimaro starts walking toward the village, and Sasuke is tugged along with him. The young Uchiha realizes that his wrists are bound, but at no point did he ever notice anyone doing this to him. Eyeing Kimimaro suspiciously, he plays along so as to prevent chafing from the tugging on his wrists. I've succeeded him simply by virtue of being his most capable successor. One day, if he wills it, he will manifest and wrest my body from me. Lord Orochimaru will not be dead forever. And should the day arrive that he returns by taking someone else's body, then I was not worthy of the honor. At the very least, I follow his directive. I will have a nation that he can call his own when he returns. Why are you telling me all of this? Sasuke asks. Lord Orochimaru told us that some other successors would come to the hidden sound village of their own volition, and their arrival would herald the countdown to his return. Kimimaro explains, almost as if he's bored, despite the excitation that his news should cause. As such, you will remain here until he chooses from whom to reincarnate. I don't think you'll hold me, Sasuke answers doubtfully. I nearly killed the Tsuchikage. You're a child. Try, but we will keep you locked up and restrained if we must. Growling, Sasuke doesn't want to be locked up again. He was either talking nonsense or Lord Orochimaru was infinitely smarter than Sasuke ever gave him credit for. To lock in such plans after his own demise, in a plan to resurrect himself, was odd. He wondered if Lord Orochimaru would use the same resurrection jutsu that he used to bring back the third Hokage, as Naruto described. You're looking for a forbidden jutsu? Kimimaro asks as they reach the gates, which open on his mere proximity, allowing them to smoothly enter. Someone I know told me he resurrected someone temporarily. I was just the Edo Tensei. Kimimaro answers abruptly with a short nod. There are complications to that jutsu, and it is not the method with which Lord Orochimaru will make his return. What are the complications? Sasuke asks. You are not trustworthy of that information yet. Lord Orochimaru would have helped me in life, Sasuke insists. So I know he'll help me when he returns. I'll wait for him here. Some of your fellow ninja are currently being held here. Kimimaro points to some ruined metal doors. They will likely cooperate if they have an ally on the inside to look out for them. No, I will not see them. Sasuke refuses. He knows that if he sees friends, it'll make him want to return home, not stay here to learn the jutsu. Just promise not to kill them. We will see, Kimimaro answers. Raising a hand, Sasuke puts a stop to this story, pausing Minato's stream of questioning about what happened next. My turn, he tells the Hokage, pressing on the questions that he's had to hang on to for years. I can't speak to the true power of Lord Orochimaru, but judging by his followers' fervor of following his post-death instructions to the T, he might have been one of the most intelligent people of the era. The Sound Ninja, the Sound Village, and the Land of Sound are all gifts for Lord Orochimaru's return. They revere him like a god, and many of them have a mark on their body that they say Lord Orochimaru put on them. The mark makes them stronger, and also makes them potential conduits for his reincarnation. But unlike the Orochimaru I knew, whomsoever he reincarnates from will decide his knowledge and his attitude. He put this mark on Kimimaro nearly 20 years ago, when Kimimaro was a child. It was during that time that he had parted ways with the village. If he reincarnates from Kimimaro, it'll only be with the memories of himself from 20 years ago. If he returns through Kimimaro, he'll return younger, in a stronger body, and as a staunch enemy of the village. Sasuke, Tsunade says, her voice calm, but her face stone still. How many people have this mark? I don't know, Sasuke admits. They were very tight-lipped about it, and I didn't spend all my time there. I escaped after only 6 months, when it was clear nothing was happening. Sharing a glance with Minato, Tsunade launches to her feet and flies out the door, making a specific effort to grab that book from Minato first. She can run as fast as she can, but I don't think there's any stopping this, Sasuke mutters doubtfully. She's not, Minato mutters. It's not stopping. Refocusing, Sasuke turns his attention to Minato. One more thing. I infiltrated the sound to use the Edo Tensei. With Kimimara's help, we developed some tweaks for it, so I wouldn't have to dig up my father's body. But he was in a malaise, barely aware of where he was. And of course, that's the weakness of the Edo Tensei. I hoped that my father would have been strong enough for it. You performed an impure resurrection without the target's body? Minato asks, impressed. That's not the point, Sasuke scoffs, annoyed that Minato's focusing on the wrong information. There's been one person in the Uchiha clan since I was a kid that everyone's called powerful, always. My brother, Itachi. Nodding slowly, Minato turns sullen and falls back into his chair. We performed that jutsu exactly correctly, Lord Fourth, Sasuke tells him, but it fizzled. Nodding, Minato tells him, Sasuke, I know what you're trying to imply. It's the Edo Tensei only fizzles when used on a living person. Where is my brother? And that's the end of today's episode. The plot thickens thanks to Sasuke's personal investigations, but it might not carry the implications you think it does. Meanwhile, all these secrets about the Sound Village coming to light, Sasuke certainly wasn't swayed by their passion. It all seemed rather unhinged to him that they were worshipping a dead guy. And as an aside, I also want to recognize that a lot of what I had Kimimaro say might parallel a certain Christian savior waiting for the resurrection and all of that. This was not with intent to blaspheme, because that's how the Chris marks always worked. I've just made this alternate universe of characters aware of the Chris mark's ultimate design. And even to that extent, I'm sure Kimimaro was fully aware of its implications in canon. One way or another, he had intended for Orochimaru to possess him. But let's take a step back. Naruto ended up in the same prison as Sasuke. Unlike the other three, Rock Lee, Shino, and Tenten, Naruto seems to have returned from wherever he was flung to fairly quickly, if he was jailed with Sasuke just a few months after the Iwa War. But he already seems to have learned something about himself and the Fox, however big or small that discovery may be. There's a fundamental difference between all the Jinchuriki in how their relationship with the respective beast works. Killer Bee, who we haven't quite met yet, is more or less the same in his relationship with his beast. Gaara is also in a similar relationship to canon, though if we're being honest, that intimate detail wasn't explored very much either. Meanwhile, Ino and Naruto post-timeskip seem to have a much more intimate relationship with their beasts. But as we'll discover next time, there's a considerable difference between these relationships. At both the start and end, Tsunade and Minato were acting kind of odd with each other and the information Sasuke shared. I do wonder what the implications of that are and where we'll end up from here. I also had to get a bit of comedy in there at the beginning when Sasuke used Katsuyu to trip up Izumo and Kotetsu. Hopefully my little bits of comedy here and there don't feel too out of place from what is an otherwise pretty serious rewrite of Naruto. And lastly, the Itachi thing. It's complicated, so I'll leave that for another time. What a tease, right? All I'll say is that the only witnesses to what went down are the Uchiha clan themselves. There are secrets about that incident being withheld, and that will eventually come to light. And to be entirely honest, the secrets themselves are something that I've thought about since 2010. If I was the writer for canon, I would have put this hidden plot into canon because I think it is very cool. But unfortunately for us all, I'm going to wait before revealing that little nugget. And between the heat and the delay on this episode, I won't be putting out an episode on Monday. But if all goes to plan, we will get a Friday episode as normal. If you were to look at the weather forecast for my region, it's basically sun without clouds for 10 days straight. So I'm in for a rough patch. I'm also playing with the idea of maybe just doing 1 episode per week during these summer months. It was around May of last year that I started doing content again, and back then I was doing 1 episode per week for a few months. It would definitely allow me to make thicker episodes, and also time to stick my head in the freezer for relief. But I will leave it up to you fine folks. Please let me know in the comments or Discord whether you'd be alright with 1 episode per week until like September, when it starts to cool down a little bit. Anyway, until then, the sky's the limit.